Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the LimitedBox widget. The LimitedBox widget allows you to specify a maximum width and a maximum height which takes effect when the limited box is unconstrained. You'll notice our homepage contains a scaffold with an app bar, and inside the body of the scaffold we're going to create a container which will be red in colour, and for the purposes of this demonstration we will give it a fixed width and height of 100 by 100. You'll notice our container appearing there in the application running in the Android emulator. Now, if we were to remove these width and height parameters, you'll notice the container will automatically grow to fill the width and the height of its parent. That's because whenever the container is placed inside a constrained widget, in this case the scaffold's body, it will automatically fill the width and the height of the parent, hence why the container fills the width of the scaffold body and the height of the scaffold body. You'll notice how, if the container was to be placed inside an unconstrained widget, which we will simulate with the unconstrained box, the container will shrink to be small as possible. Hence why the container disappears, because it now essentially has a width and height of 0. If we were to remove this unconstrained box and replace it with a list view, like so, you'll notice how a similar thing happens, because by default the list view scrolls vertically from top to bottom. That means that the vertical axis of the list view is unconstrained. The list view essentially going on infinitely on the vertical axis in order to scroll through the list of children. This means that the container is unconstrained in the vertical axis. It essentially has an unconstrained height, which means, as we saw from the unconstrained box example, the container will shrink in the vertical axis, meaning it will have a height of 0, hence not being displayed in the application. You'll notice how if we were to give it a fixed height of 200, it reappears with the full width of the list view and a fixed height of 200. Now, this fixed height of 200 is all well and good. However, if we were to remove the list view, you'll notice it still retains that height of 200. Now you might be wondering how you can specify that the height of 200 only applies if the height of the parent of the container is unconstrained. And that is where the LimitedBox widget comes into play. If we revert our list view and remove the height of the container, once again we see the container disappearing. However, what we can do is wrap the container in a LimitedBox widget. The LimitedBox widget takes in a max width and a max height. These arguments must not be null and they must not be negative. And essentially this means that the LimitedBox will constrain the size of the child only when the LimitedBox itself is unconstrained. For example, if we were to specify a maximum height of 200, you'll notice how the container will have a height of 200. That's because the list view provides the horizontal constraints from left to right, and the LimitedBox provides the vertical constraints of 200 in this case, from top to bottom. Again, removing that maximum height means that whilst the list view provides the horizontal constraints from left to right, the list view has an unconstrained vertical axis, meaning that the height of the container shrinks to be 0. Reapplying that max height there of 200, the container filling up the full width of the list view and the maximum height of 200 of the LimitedBox widget. You'll notice, however, if we were to remove the list view, the container grows to be the full width and the full height of the scaffold body. That's because the scaffold body provides constraints based on the screen size. You'll notice how it's the full width and full height of the space available, which means that the limited box is no longer unconstrained. It's now constrained, which means that the max width, and in this case the max height, no longer have an effect, essentially making the limited box widget here redundant. This is essentially very useful if you want to have a flexible size of the child of the limited box, in this case the container, but you want the container to still have a maximum height in the event that the parent is unconstrained in any one or both of the axes, either vertically and or horizontally. So essentially the limited box widget allows you to specify a maximum width and or height, which will only take effect in the event that the parent of the limited box is unconstrained, either vertically for the maximum height to take effect, and or horizontally for the maximum width to take effect. I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much for watching.